Welcome back to the Chattable podcast, where we learn real English in real life, in rich vocabulary, and feel proud. So I want you to imagine coding the most advanced artificial intelligence on the planet right now.
Right, like a technology that is literally defining the 21st century.
Exactly. Now imagine that the only way you can actually, accurately describe what that AI is doing is by using slang from a muddy 19th century horse track.
Or like a dog chained up in a farmyard.
Yeah, it's wild. And that is exactly our mission for today's episode. We are examining two really dynamic English phrases that are used constantly to describe modern tech scenarios, but, well, they're actually rooted in the grit of the physical past.
Right, and the thematic framework that really ties these two phrases together is it's the concept of control. We're looking at two totally opposite extremes of human behavior when we're confronted with these complex systems.
The first phrase is about letting go, right?
Yeah, completely and terrifyingly letting go of control. And the second phrase is the polar opposite. It's about desperately trying to maintain control by, keeping a massive secret hidden from the people in power.
Okay, let's jump straight into that first extreme, so letting go. Let me read our first target sentence right from the source material for you. Here it is. Some software engineers are now used to opening several windows and setting dozens of AI agents loose coding for multiple projects at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So the phrase we are zeroing in on here is setting loose or set loose.
And when you hear that in the context of, advanced AI, your brain immediately pictures this very sterile environment.
Like servers, glowing screens, algorithms, that whole vibe.
Exactly. But the etymology of set loose drags us completely out of Silicon Valley. It drops us straight into the mud of animal training and livestock farming.
Which, that feels like a bizarre leap, right? We were talking about mathematical perfection in code, not a literal barnyard.
It does sound contradictory, yeah, until you really understand the physical mechanism of the phrase. So picture a guard dog tied up in a yard on a heavy restrictive chain.
Okay, I can picture that.
Or maybe a hunting dog out in a field, just bursting with adrenaline, but being held back by its owner on a really tight leash.
Right. The dog is straining. It wants to run.
Exactly. It wants to hunt and just follow its raw nature, but there is this physical barrier keeping it constrained. So the exact moment the owner reaches down, unclips that leash, and allows the animal to run entirely on its own instincts without being pulled back, well, they have set it loose.
Okay, I hear the wild dog analogy, but I don't really buy that tech companies actually want wild AI. They want productive, predictable AI, don't they?
You'd think so, yeah.
Right, so isn't setting loose a dozen AI agents just, giving them a much longer digital leash? They are still trapped within the confines of their programming.
Well, that's a super common misconception, actually, but it kind of misunderstands how autonomous AI works today.
Really? How so?
When an engineer sets loose an AI agent, they aren't just giving it a longer leash. They are completely removing their hands from the steering wheel.
Oh, wow. So no control at all.
Right. They give the AI a goal, say, build a website. And then they just step back entirely.
Yeah.
The human engineer doesn't know how the AI is going to write the code. They aren't monitoring the keystrokes.
They're just trusting it.
Exactly. They are trusting the entity to run on its own logic and navigate obstacles without human intervention. Metaphorically, you are releasing a person, a team, or tech to operate on its own with total creative freedom or, automated independence.
So the key mechanism here is the deliberate absence of micromanagement. Like you are trading predictability for just autonomous speed.
Yeah, and you see that exact same unbridled energy in the creative world, too. Our sources actually highlight a perfect real-world example from Hollywood for this.
Oh, right. The Barbie movie example.
Yes. When director Greta Gerwig was filming Barbie, she didn't choreograph every single movement or dictate every facial expression for the actor Ryan Gosling.
She basically set him loose on the set.
She totally unclipped the leash. The script called for this chaotic, overly emotional musical number for his character, Ken.
The I'm Just Ken song.
That's the one. If Gerwig had tightly controlled that scene, if she had mapped out exactly where Gosling needed to stand and exactly how to sing, the performance would have felt so sterile and manufactured.
Right, it would have lost the magic.
Completely. By setting him loose, she gave him the total independence to improvise, and the result was that messy, unpolished perfection of that sequence. Strict direction would have absolutely ruined it.
The situation basically demanded unrestrained, wild energy.
Exactly.
That actually makes the boundaries of this phrase incredibly stark for our listener. Because, if setting loose guarantees a level of unrestrained, chaotic energy, there are environments where using this phrase would be absolutely terrifying.
Oh, 100%.
Like, you never use this idiom when the situation requires extreme caution, strict rules, or delicate precision.
Yeah, the contrast is super striking if you apply it to, say, the medical field.
Right. Think about open heart surgery.
Yeah.
You absolutely do not want the chief of medicine walking into the waiting room to tell your family that they are going to set a surgeon loose on your heart.
Oh my gosh, no, because that implies the surgeon is going to just burst through the double doors with no surgical plan.
Just ignoring the nurses and wildly improvising with a scalpel based on their raw instincts.
Yeah, it strips away all the necessary boundaries. It's a nightmare scenario.
And the same logic applies to a formal legal proceeding or, a high-stakes financial audit. If your company is being audited by the IRS, strict compliance is literally your only goal.
You definitely don't set accountants loose on your tax returns.
Exactly. You don't want wild, uninhibited improvisation when dealing with rigid federal laws or delicate human biology. So setting loose is a brilliant descriptor for creativity and AI automation, but it is a massive red flag for precision.
Yeah, keep it for your actors and your algorithms, but keep it far away from your surgeons and your lawyers.
Well said. Now, it's terrifying to imagine unconstrained chaos in an operating room because the results are, visible and immediate.
Right.
But in the tech world, the scariest things aren't the AI agents running wild in plain sight. It's what's happening invisibly, behind the code, where people are quietly exploiting loopholes.
Yeah, the dark side of the digital landscape.
Exactly. And that shift from visible freedom to invisible danger brings us perfectly to our second phrase. Let me read the source sentence that introduces this scenario. Listen to the tension here.
Okay, let's hear it.
The college students found a loophole that allowed them to use tens of thousands of dollars worth of OpenAI tokens through an account that cost them just $20 a month. They avoided talking to the media, trying to not tip off the AI giant. The phrase here is tip off.
Now, if you are a sports fan, your mind probably jumps straight to basketball. The tip-off is the jump ball at the center of the court at the very start of a game.
Right. The referee throws the ball up, the players jump, and they tip it to their teammates.
Exactly, which is a highly visible, brightly lit public event with thousands of people watching.
Which is the absolute opposite of what these college students were doing.
Completely the opposite. The investigative, secretive meaning of tip-off, the one used in our target sentence here, has literally nothing to do with basketball.
Oh, really? Where does it come from then?
It actually stems from the grimy 19th century underworld of horse racing and illegal betting.
So we are going from farmyard dogs straight to muddy racetracks.
Yeah, the imagery is incredibly grounded today. Back in the 19th century, horse racing was plagued by rigged systems, injured horses that the public didn't know about, and these massive illicit gambling networks.
Sounds like a mess.
It was. And in that world, to tip someone meant to secretly pass them a private hint. It was a whisper in a dark tavern about which horse was guaranteed to win the next race because, well, the fix was in.
So you were giving someone asymmetric information, like knowledge that the general public just did not have, which allowed them to exploit the betting odds.
Exactly. The mechanism is entirely about information asymmetry. And over time, that evolved beyond the racetrack.
How so?
Well, tipping someone off grew to mean giving a secret warning to the police about a crime that was about to happen. Or, on the flip side, a corrupt cop warning a suspect that the authorities were closing in so they could escape.
If we contrast the imagery of our two phrases, it's honestly fascinating. Because setting loose is like taking the leash off a dog in a wide-open park on a sunny day. But tipping off is standing in a dark alley, looking over your shoulder and whispering a high-stakes secret into someone's ear.
Which maps perfectly onto modern corporate espionage and journalism. Today, we use it as a phrasal verb to describe giving insider information to someone before it becomes public knowledge.
Right, like journalists relying on whistleblowers to tip them off about political corruption.
Exactly.
I want to look at the corporate side of this because our sources highlight one of the most famous examples in history. The collapse of the energy giant Enron back in 2001.
Oh, yeah, the quintessential example of asymmetric information.
Right. Before the entire corporation imploded and the global public realized what was actually happening, the vice president of Enron, Sharon Watkins, wrote a highly confidential memo.
She was trying to tip off the company's CEO, Kenneth Lay.
Yes, about the massive, systematic accounting fraud occurring behind the scenes.
She definitely wasn't just giving him a standard quarterly status report.
No, she was slipping him a private, high-stakes warning. I mean, she had peered into the underworld of the company's financials, realized the entire system was rigged, and was desperately trying to pass that private hint up the chain before the inevitable explosion.
She was tipping him off to a disaster that the public and the shareholders were entirely blind to.
Exactly. And when we look back at the college students in our target sentence, the context is different, but the underlying mechanism is identical.
Yeah, they weren't committing massive corporate fraud, obviously, but they were exploiting a system.
He found a loophole in OpenAI's architecture.
Right. They were essentially tricking the system into minting tens of thousands of dollars worth of AI computational power, these digital tokens, all while paying a basic $20 monthly subscription.
It's basically a modern-day digital heist pulled off from a dorm room.
And their primary goal became protecting the asymmetry of that information. That is exactly why they completely avoided the media.
Because they knew if they gave an interview to a tech blog or bragged about it online, it would inevitably filter back to OpenAI's security team.
They refused to tip off the AI giant because the moment OpenAI got tipped off, the moment they received that whisper that their system had a massive vulnerability, the power dynamic would instantly flip.
The company would patch the code, close the loophole, and the student's infinite supply of computing power would just vanish.
Exactly. Tipping off destroys the advantage of the person holding the secret.
This means you, our listener, need to be incredibly careful with how you use this phrase in your own life. Tipping off requires a massive power imbalance or really high stakes.
Yeah, you cannot use this phrase for public, helpful, or official announcements.
The phrase demands danger or hidden motives. Think about a university sending out an email blast to all students, politely reminding them that final exams begin next Monday.
Right.
The administration is not tipping off the student body. It is a public official schedule that everyone has the right to know. There is no underworld. There's no secret advantage.
Or consider everyday office interactions. Like if you pull a colleague aside to let them know there are free donuts in the break room, or politely tell a friend their shoe is untied, you aren't tipping them off. You are just sharing a nice piece of mundane information.
But if you secretly pull that same colleague aside, look over your shoulder and whisper that the CEO is frantically dumping their company's stock 5 minutes before a disastrous earnings call, now that is a tip-off.
Because the stakes are incredibly high there, the information is heavily asymmetric, and possessing that knowledge gives your colleague a massive, potentially illegal advantage.
Exactly. So if the scenario doesn't feel like you are whispering a rigged bet at a 19th century racetrack or sliding a confidential memo across a desk before a corporation collapses, you should not be using tip-off.
Synthesizing the journey we've taken through the source material today gives us just a remarkable view of how we process innovation.
It really does.
We have explored two highly dynamic phrases that capture the absolute extremes of how humans interact with modern technology. On one end of the spectrum, we have the unbridled, autonomous power of AI generation, a phenomenon we can really only articulate by picturing a human unclipping the heavy leash of a guard dog and setting it loose to follow its programming without micromanagement.
Total visible freedom.
Right. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have the invisible exploitation of those exact same digital systems. The vulnerabilities, the loopholes, the asymmetric flow of power.
Yeah, and to describe that, we discard the sunny park and retreat into the shadows. We borrow the hushed, secretive language of 19th century gambling rings to ensure we don't tip off the authorities.
We are taking the most abstract, cutting-edge dynamics of our era and anchoring them in incredibly visceral physical imagery.
Which honestly brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today, just something for you to really mull over as you navigate the digital world. Isn't it profoundly ironic that as we hurtle forward into this highly advanced future, a future defined by autonomous AI agents writing code, complex digital tokens, and massive sterile server farms, the only way we can effectively make sense of our behavior is by borrowing language born in the mud of old farmyards and the crumpled betting slips of 19th century racetracks.
It is pretty crazy to think about.
Right. Why is it that the faster our technology accelerates into the abstract future, the deeper we instinctively reach into our low-tech, physical past to explain it?
I think it suggests that no matter how advanced the system gets, the human instincts driving it, the desire for total freedom and the thrill of holding a dangerous secret, they never actually change.
Keep an ear out for both of these phrases this week. Whether you are reading tech journalism, watching a movie, or just navigating corporate politics, you will be shocked at how often the mud of the past splatters onto the screens of the present once you know what to listen for. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we will see you next time.